y'all, I'm Jeanette Keynes from Jewelry Arts Inc. Today in the studio is part one of how to bezel set an emerald cut faceted stone. So, as all our videos start, you may remember this lovely bracelet that Susie made, soldered together with our fancy new 18 karat solder, which works, and the color match is ridiculous. It's gonna be a lot of plugs in this video, so I'm just gonna tell you right now, just know it's gonna be like plug, 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 plug. Because I'm also gonna show you the engraving ball. The engraving ball is a tool that I'm very attached to because I started using it many years ago and I was like, where has this been all my life? But here's the problem with engraving balls. What they're really made for originally was for people who engrave. So you put something in there, you either clamp it in, or there's also like all little funny attachments you can get for the top that go in the holes, and I can show you that later. Honestly, I never use mine. I usually just stuff a paper towel in there because I'm a classy broad, but that's what I usually do. And that's what you do, is that people were able to use this to engrave. At some point, I guess stone setters like saw that and were like, dude, that's amazing. But the problem with engraving balls is this: they can be really, really pricey. I mean, like a lot, like $600, $800, $1,500, like a lot. Now, I blow tons of money on tools all the time, admittedly, but I do feel like with stuff like this, like most jewelers, you don't need a $1,500. You don't need an $800 engraving ball. You need one that's like a few $100s. Do you know what I'm saying? It will change your life. You will be really happy you have it. But because I have at home a much bigger, much fancier one, it does nothing that this one doesn't do. It's also harder to pick up because it's like, oh my God. You know what I mean? So for me, I like these little ones. These are just heavy enough that they, kind of hold everything, sit there and behave themselves. You see what I mean? They just like slide around like that. You can also chase and repousse with this too. You can like literally do a little block of wood with a little pitch on top and clamp it right in here. And you can like move it all around. I've done that too when I wanted to do more flat things and I really wanted to be able to like get in from the side and stuff like that. This thing is like, so we're gonna have these on the website very soon, but that's what I've been doing for a long time, is trying to find one that's like not so crazy expensive. Like, is it as deliciously beautiful as the one for $1,500? No, but there's nothing the fancy ones do that this doesn't do every bit as well. And I feel like there are things that I'm totally willing to blow my money on. Like the best files in the world are worth every nickel. Like those Val Titan files, it's like I would never trade that out for a less expensive file. This, I think people they're just wasting their money. You know what I mean? Use that money to buy gold, use that money to buy stones, whatever. So at any rate, there's my long plug about the engraving ball, because it makes setting so easy, especially with faceted stones. Because you know how when you're setting a faceted stone, you have to constantly set and then check from the side to make sure it's level. Right. This thing, I can spin, I can get it at every angle. Like, it's like, oh, it's so nice. Okay, so I'll show you my high-tech equipment that I use. Very, very swanky broad, so. Like so. And if I'm really feeling fancy, I take a rubber band and put it around it just so that it doesn't kind of pop up and get in my way. So we're gonna take your lovely bracelet and we're gonna pop it right in there. Because this is 90% of the time, this is how I hold things in the vise, is literally just this. I put the paper towel in there and I clamp it like a ring or a bracelet. If I have some kind of like delicate earring or something, maybe I'll put it on a little wood board with a hole drilled in it, or I'll hold it with jet set and you can clamp the jet set right in here. So I never use any of the attachments. I just think they're more trouble than they're worth, but they have them. You can, whatever. Okay, like so. Oh my God, so fancy and beautiful. They make like leather insert jaws, but for some unknown reason, I cannot keep them. Like, we used to have them, like rubber ones, and they just disappear. Paper towel I can always access. So that's what I use. So Susie came in this morning very, very concerned because her stone, we're getting to the point where we're getting ready to set, right? So she's made her inner bezel, and now we're at the point, like, we gotta put the stone in and see if that's the right height and start making our final adjustments. So she's like, my stone isn't going in, like, it's fine. what we do when I make these bezels, I'm sure we've talked about this before in the videos. You know, these are emerald cut, so they have those little eighths on the edges. Now, those bezels are a bitch and a half to make, those little bastards. So I want to pause for 1 second and go let that person in. You know, in a moment of desperation many years ago in the studio when I was learning how to make these and practicing, you know my philosophy, if you're not cheating, you're not trying hard enough. So I thought, look, well, what happens if I don't put in the eighths? You know, if I just like make it real tight and do the eighths afterward. Magically, math was with me. If you make your bezel into your rectangle, or you know what I mean, in all your angles, and you make it nice and tight, you've got just enough room to then go in with your chain nose pliers at the very end and put in those little eighths. Hey, Alana. If I was smarter, I would be able to explain to you the exact way that that math plays out, but I'm not. So I will just tell you that it works.
Even for bigger stones?
Yes, as long as you make the bezel quite tight. You end up with basically, Mike and I were like trying to get scientific one day, and he figured out it was like, you end up with like 10% extra space by leaving that there, and that's just enough to, it works. I'm gonna leave it at that because I don't think my explanation is gonna get that much better. So we're at the point now to put those corners back in so this can go in here, right?
I'm not sure if the inner bezel is at the right spot because...
It may not be, because the first thing we've got to do is we can't figure out anything about that inner bezel till we can get the stone to go in level from the top. Because if we can't get it in level from the top, who knows what the fuck that inner bezel is doing? That might be touching it, it might be not, you know, like who knows what it's doing. So we're going to concentrate first on getting that, and then we're going to see what the inner bezel has to tell us.
Okay.
Now, I tend to just do this by eye, but I've been doing that for a while. You know what I mean? Doing the little things with the chain nose pliers. But this is how you can do it more scientifically. You can take your dividers and you can hold it up against your little eighth, you know, your little corner there, and get the width. You see that?
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
If you then take that and hold it against your pliers, like for your pliers, that's right at the end. So I can make a little Sharpie mark on my pliers, and I know exactly how deep to go down in to give me that width. So I'll show you what I mean. So like I said, for your pliers, it's basically right at the end.
Are they too big?
No, they're okay. It's if they were too big,
They would be bigger than that.
then yeah, exactly. Then we would have to get a little smaller pair of pliers. But you see what I mean? How it goes right at the end. So marking these is sort of pointless because literally it's right at the end. But just so you know, that wherever this fits on there, I just put a little Sharpie mark so that it's easy for me to find it. Okay? This is one of those techniques that like,
What do you need, a dowel?
just little pointy tweezers that you figure out because you're like, wow, this sucks so much. Maybe I can figure out a better way to do it. You know what I mean? Like, I hate this. Can I do it better? And sometimes the truth is there is no better way to do it, but sometimes if you're lucky. Okay, so I'm going to take my pliers and I'm just going to give it a little squeeze right at the end, at the very end there. Trying to like hold my finger up against there. Now, truthfully, so you can take a look at that.
Great.
You know, if you want your bezel to be super geometric, you can make the bezel with all the ace right from the start. Like use a heavier bezel and saw, you know what I mean, to get really crisp edges. What I find for most of us, we don't care about that. And nobody's looking at the bottom of the bezel and worrying about that. They're worried about the top, the setting, whatever. So, I mean, yes, if you're going for that, like, you know, hyper sharp edges all the way down the bezel, you may not like the way this looks. For me, I think it looks great and it's all good, but just so you know. And so you see what I mean? How you get that cute little corner right there? So I'm going to do that all the way around.
Okay.
And then I'll do another one and I'll let you do the other two.
Okay.
So I usually just try to brace my hand and I'm grabbing it, you know, right absolutely at the apex of that point. Like that. Okay. Now I want you, and I mean literally you don't do a lot, you just like squeeze, because this is 22 carat bezel and 26 gauge, you know, so it's not like it's super heavy and thick. So I want you to do the other two.
Okay.
And then you're gonna take this and you're gonna go in through the top, that's okay. And you'll see happy things, I promise.
Okay, thank you.